Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the program on this Wednesday, April the 15th. Normally, this would be the day you'd have to send in your income tax. Now, you can still do that if you wish. And if you get a refund, you've probably already done that. But if you have to pay, well, you don't have to file them today. You can wait. You can reserve payment until July 15th. So you have plenty of time, as a matter of fact. And that's where we are on this very different April 15th. Chile today. 73 years ago today, Jackie Robinson trotted out to first base and began what was a breakthrough that has been felt in every way of life every day since. A year later came Truman integrating the military. A couple of years later, Brown versus the Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. It was 1954. You can think of other things that happened along the way through the years, all marking these moments, but a lot of it started with Jackie Robinson and his start with the Brooklyn Dodgers. I was just looking at the box score. He went 1 for 3 that day, had 2 walks. Dodgers won 12-6 against the Boston Braves. Eddie Stanky batted first. Jackie batted second. Pete Reza batted third. Carl Furillo batted fourth. So that was 73 years ago today. We'll have Ron Darling in a couple of minutes, so we'll chat some baseball with Ron. Earlier today, Dr. Fauci, who's become like the rock star of the pandemic and who you see everywhere, and his word kind of is the word when it comes to this stuff, stated today that the only way professional sports will happen this summer is if they hold events without fans in attendance. Now, he mentioned in the same sentence keeping players in hotels, but I don't know how much the doc spends about sports. I heard the president the other day say he was an ex-basketball player, but I don't know if he's aware that players have always stayed in hotels. But be that as it may, he stated that the only way there would be any games is if there were no fans permitted at the games. That was it. That he didn't see any other way that any of that could happen this year. He just didn't feel like it was possible. He felt like there was too much risk. So, not exactly. Sports will happen this summer is by holding events without fans in attendance. There's a way of doing it, Fauci said. Nobody comes to the stadium. Put the players in hotels. Keep them very well surveilled. Have them tested every week. Make sure they don't wind up infecting each other or their family, and let them play out the season. Is that something that's an exciting thought? Not really. But as we look at ways to open up, and maybe you saw Governor Cuomo's presentation today, which had dealt with how you, according to him, complete that bridge back to a new normal, not the old normal. And most people feel there has to be massive testing, depending on what level of testing. Everybody has a different level of testing, but testing will be involved. You hear this mapping a lot. That doesn't make any sense to me, though, the mapping idea. I understand sending somebody home if they're sick. What I don't get is, why would you go to all the time and effort to trace somebody, where that means if I test positive, they come to me and ask me, all right, where have you been in the last 2 weeks? Who have you been in close contact with? Give us all the names. And then they go test everybody that's on my list. Seems like a colossal waste of time. Because what happens when they get them? They're going to just put them in isolation anyway, the ones that are positive. So why not just test people and tell them to go home? You can go in, you can go home. You can go in, you can go home. That's it. Maybe you give somebody, they get a red mark that goes on their phone. There's been something about that. There's also been this idea of using the phones through Apple and Google to designate stuff. Who knows? The bottom line is, here's what we know. The federal government can punt it to the states. The states can tell the federal government that we don't have any testing, so we don't know what you're talking about, and we don't have any. We can't afford it. The bottom line is, nobody has a plan. The only plan that works in real time, in real terms, is this. There's a drug that everyone can take if they get sick. And then we're done. If we have a therapeutic, whatever it may be, if it's the Gilead drug, if it's the malaria drug, whatever drug it may be, or some combination of drugs, they're supposedly testing 69 different drugs now. Whatever there is, if there is a therapeutic out there where if I get sick, I know I can be put on this protocol for 5 days and I'll be better, then I'm not worried about getting it. And then everybody can go back to doing what they're doing. And when we get a vaccine, well, heck, we're out of the woods. But everyone, no matter who it is, says it's going to take 12 months minimum. Minimum, that's rushing it to get a vaccine. Everyone who's involved in vaccines says that. So now let's get the therapeutics, which could be much quicker. It could be the end of the summer. It could be November, whatever. If we have that, we're okay. If you believe in that, we're okay. What we can't have is we can't have everybody get sick. We can't have everybody dying. Right now, every day I look up when I come on the air, the number nationally is 2,000 more than it was the day before. Yesterday it was 29. Today it's 31,000. Tomorrow when I do this, it'll be 33,000. Friday when I do it, it'll be 35,000. Next Monday when I do it, it'll be 40-something thousand. They go up about 1,800 a day. You're still losing 600 a night in New York. Still losing 250 a night in Jersey. Still losing 1,800 a night across the country. And we don't have a plan. There's no plan. Everyone can point fingers, but there's no plan. Testing, we can't test everybody in this country. We've tested nobody. We've tested fewer than 2 million people in 5 weeks. They're talking about, one guy put out a plan that I read today. 20 million tests a week. Huh? We've done fewer than 2 million tests since we talked about starting this. Fewer than 2 million. How are we going to do 20 million tests a week? There's no chance that happens. So they're going to slowly start to open things up. It's not going to be good for sports. It's not going to be good for vacation properties. It's going to really be bad for cruise ships. It's going to be bad if you're in the airline business. It's going to be bad if you're in the hotel business. It's going to be bad if you're in the vacation business or resort business or in the theme park business. It's going to be bad. It's not going to be great if you're in the restaurant business. You might get some X number of people in there a night, and you might get a bunch of takeout orders. You get enough to get by, but it won't be a thriving business again. It's not going to be good at ballparks, concerts, movies, Broadway. No one's going to go until they can convince. No, are you going to go in the summertime and sit in a crowded movie theater? No chance. Not unless you know you're healthy. Not unless you know you already had it and you can't get it again, or there's a therapeutic out there that'll help you. One or the other, or you're not doing it. And you're not sitting in a ballpark either. Now, I hope we get baseball back, and I hope we get it back even if we're just playing the games for television. It's better than nothing. But do I see Yankee Stadium in August and there's 1,000 people in the ballpark? Not a chance. Not a chance. Do I think I'm going to be in Saratoga in August and there's going to be 50,000 people in the grandstand on a Sunday? I don't think so. I don't think so. Can we play golf? Yeah, you can have a golf tournament. You don't even need fans there. You can play other professional sports, put them on for TV. Absolutely, you can do that. Heck, they do that. They've done that for years in baseball. They've just called it the Rays. They've had baseball in empty parks. They just call it Tampa. So we've already had that experiment. Everybody knows they have to reopen. Some places in this country are going to open before May 1st, I bet you. By May 1st, a lot of the country is going to reopen. And you're going to hear about a whole lot of colossal plans for producing tests and having tests and everything else and for distancing and everything. And you know what everyone's going to do? They're going to hold their breath and pray that everybody doesn't get really sick and hope that they can open this economy up little by little and people can take chances a little bit more and a little bit more and pray that they don't get sick, because if they get real sick and people are dropping at big numbers, you know, when we come to the point where you can look the American people through that big collective lens and you can look at the American people and say, hey, if we lose under 200,000 people, we did a great job. Come on. There's no design for losing a couple of 100,000 Americans and telling people it's a good job. But that's what we're looking at. Because, let's be honest, the deaths aren't going to stop. You already heard Jersey talk about they don't want to open until June. And I don't know if they will, and they might be forced into it, or they're pressured into it. I don't know. Maybe they'll open little parts of it, and they won't open other parts. We'll see. But the deaths aren't going to stop. Not right away. There's rumors that some of the therapeutics are working. God, I hope they do. I wish one would work like crazy and we could be done with this tonight. That would be the best thing that ever happened to us. But barring that, it's going to be a struggle. They're going to reopen because there's no other alternative. There's no other alternative. And the only reason we haven't had a crisis on Wall Street is the fact that basically the Fed, either on its own or with political pressure, and I don't know which one, put forth an amount of money that was basically the equivalent of 1/4 of our yearly production in terms of the amount of revenue that would be produced. They backstopped everything with basically about $6 trillion. In a $22 trillion economy for the year, they made sure there was enough liquidity there to cover about $6 trillion worth if they needed it. They haven't used all that, but if they needed it, it's there. And they said there's more there if you need it. And that'll probably cause some inflation, but it kept things from getting crazy. Because otherwise you would have had crisis already. You would have had really big problems in the bond market, which would have caused big problems in the stock market. The reason you haven't had the big problem in the stock market isn't because the public sentiment, because the stock market has nothing to do with public sentiment, because most people don't have anything to do with the stock market. Public sentiment is anxious and uncertain. That's the best thing you could say about public sentiment. Extremely anxious and uncertain. The market has held up. Didn't have a great day today, but it's held up. You had a good day if you had Amazon, but otherwise it didn't have a great day. But it has held up because the Fed has produced enormous liquidity, and that's kept things flowing and floating, and everything just kind of moving along. Without that, it would have been a nightmare. But it doesn't mean there aren't some rough bounces coming as we reopen. There's going to be a lot. And remember, parts of the country didn't even close. Not everybody closed.
Nice to talk to you.
My pleasure. First of all, how you feeling? How you holding up? Everything okay?
Yeah, we're good. I'm here in Florida. I've been here since spring training because I have my parents who stay down here with me, and they're both compromised. So I'm keeping them in the house, and we're doing our best to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, everything seems to be. I have a place in Palm Beach. I'm not there. Have
Yeah.
family staying there, and they've kind of buttoned everything down there. So everyone seems to be okay. Here, it's been a little crazy, as you know, but I mean, everyone seems to be okay. But what's your thought? As give me this from you
Okay.
because this is a good perspective from you. As an ex-player, what do you think the players are thinking? What is foremost of? Is it safety that the players are most concerned? Is what do you think's on the players' minds?
Well, I definitely think it's safety. A lot of these guys have family. I think the news that they could be without their families for a couple of months scares them to death. You know what I mean? Not because baseball players aren't used to being away from their families, but because in a time where a lot of people are getting sick, not to be there with your family is a little scary. But Mike, like most things, this is a prime. This is the awful part of it. This is your prime time to earn your money. This is a lot of money on the line, and when push comes to shove, there's going to be a vote on this. And we've seen that it was done in the NFL many years ago, and the vote was very, very close. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a vote on whether you collect your maximum paycheck or not.
Ronnie, what does a normal pitcher? Now he's got a protocol. He's got to go through.
Yeah.
They give him a protocol. First of all, you think most guys are diligent enough this time of year, knowing that they could be told, "Let's go," and away we go. There'll be extra pitchers on every team. We know that whenever that comes back. I mean, we know there could be up to 20 pitchers on a team. We've heard all kinds of crazy stuff like that. But do you think most guys, especially pitchers, are diligent in doing their work right now at this time of year?
Yeah, I think they are. The only problem is that, in a team sport, it helps if you have some people around you. I mean, at some point, even if you are self-quarantined, I mean, you need someone to catch the ball, whether it's your high school catcher or whoever it is. So, I think these guys are in better shape than any generation of player in the history of the game. So they'll be ready to go quicker than you think. I think in my mind, I think they'd be ready to go in 2 weeks, but I think they'll push it to 3. So I think it'll be a 3-week window to get the guys ready once they decide that they have a plan to play.
Do you, in your mind, and we're talking with Ron Darling, of course, who obviously does the Mets with a longtime player and does the Mets with Keith and with Gary Cohen, and everyone is longing to have them back. They were one of the top teams, if not the top team in baseball, doing it on television, and everyone's looking forward to getting some baseball back. And is there a number in your mind that legitimizes the season schedule-wise? In your mind, do you think you have to have a certain number of games to legitimize the season?
I think, Mike, because of what is going on, I think, there'll be an asterisk to this season for all time. It doesn't matter if you play 100 games or if you play 60 games. I think this is just going to be one of those seasons that you can't judge it under the same microscope as you judge any other season. So that being said, I wouldn't want less than 100, but I don't think that's going to happen. So maybe it's one half of a season. Maybe we're talking about 81 or so games. That to me you would at least not have any real outliers there that someone could jump up and with a 20-5 start, all of a sudden the Detroit Tigers are in, who have a challenged team this year. So that being said, I don't know. I'm open to anything that they want to do to use this as kind of a petri dish, Mike, for future things that they think might play in the game of the future, whether that's 7 innings in double headers, whether that's robotic umpires, whatever. I think if you're going to take experiments, this will be the year to do it.
All right, let me throw them by you that have been mentioned. Number one, you just hit on a couple of them. Number one, 7-inning games, double headers. Are you okay with that or not okay with that?
I'm fine with that. I don't think there's any issue, and I think because of the need to kind of take care of your pitching, those 4 innings off in a doubleheader will be important.
Electronic umpires, balls and strikes through some kind of technological advance. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay if it's a combination, Mike. I don't think the technology is there. So a combination of the home plate umpire and a robotic umpire. That therefore, what I guess I'm trying to say is the robotic umpire kind of hits a snag on a pitch. You still have the umpire to make the correct call, or the correct call in his mind.
How about the idea of a commingled staff that would have the Major League and the AAA staff together, where you might have as many as 20 pitchers because of the scheduling on a staff?
Well, that would be one of the things that probably will happen, but it'll make the game awfully ugly. We've already seen what 13-man pitching staffs will do. So I think we're trying to find a way to make the game more pleasurable to watch. I'm thinking like that. Make the ability to manipulate your roster easier for teams, so that what you can do is you could have 13-man pitching staffs, but you can have 5 kids waiting at the Hotel LaGuardia when the Mets are at home, and you can interchange those guys from day to day.
How crazy is the idea of a guy in the middle of his career? Let's say it's you, and you're 25 right now, or 26 right now, and you are sitting home thinking, I might not play baseball this year. What's going through your mind?
Once you get past all of the devastation that has happened to folks and our health workers, or whatever, if you take a little egocentric look at it, you're thinking to yourself, if I play 8 great years in the major league, 8, let's say 6, I play 6 great years in the major leagues, I just lost one of them. And, when you put your head on the pillow, and whether you're Mike Trout, who's going to lose a year of excellence like he always has, or you're for your kid who's 25 or 26, and this is his free agent year, a chance to put up some numbers, whether it's Betts or someone else. I don't know. It's a very limited window that you have to be a ball player, and one of them might go by the wayside.
Do you think the economics plays? Do you think the player's career, in terms of how he looks at performance, plays a bigger part, or do you think the economics plays a bigger part?
I think the economics are going to play a bigger part. Mike, the reason you're going to have a season this year is because of the economics. You would think at some point, maybe not having a season, but there's just so much money out there. It's a $10 billion industry.
Yeah, and people have to remember, this is a business, you guys. This is how you guys feed your families. This is a business. So, I mean, that's got to be taken into account.
Yeah, and it is, but I don't know if I'm one of those people that's in the compromised position.
Right.
I don't know if I'm ready to get sick from doing the job either. But
well, you see, I was going to get to that. For you, it's a little tricky. I mean, you've had your issues.
Yeah.
And let's say there's two camps. There's someone who's a broadcaster and is 70 years old and is thinking one thing, or there's someone who has an illness or is healthy now, thank God, like you, but has had an illness where it might have impacted your immune system, where you have to think of that as an issue right now. I mean, you could sit home and do nothing this year, or deal with this, and I'm sure it's a decision you have to make, right?
Yeah, it will be, but I think knowing the game, I think if the players in Major League Baseball decide that it's time to go, and they believe that they're going to have the necessary things in place to mitigate some of the pandemic, then I think it's time to go. You have to go.
So you'll be comfortable with that yourself?
I think I will. Now,
okay.
We'll see the day before it happens if I think any differently. But I think that I'm not overvaluing what baseball will bring. I mean, it's a sport, and things are happening that are much more serious than any other sport. But if people are home and they're hanging at home, it would be nice to give them something. If they're a baseball fan, that might take away a couple hours out of their day, which might put a smile on their face.
No. Listen, you serve sports. What you do, what I do, serves as a diversion.
Yeah.
There's no question. We all know that. Yeah. But
yeah.
We're in the toy department. We understand that too. I mean, that's where we live, in the toy department. But I mean, that's just, and when the toy department does collide with the real world, you always feel a little out of place. I mean, I've always felt that my life through all these years when I come in and decide what to do the show on. There's only been a couple of times that's happened. This has been the weirdest of all, though, because there's been no sports at all. I mean, even 9/11, we were shooting for something, and we knew they were going to be 10 days. This has been the craziest thing any of us have ever, obviously. The uncertainty of it has been just unbelievable. But let's be honest, it's not going to be the same, because just as Fauci just said today, he talked about baseball and said, hey, I can't see any way anybody's going to be in the stadiums this year. And until we get a drug that works, until we get a therapeutic that works, you're not going to see people in the ballparks. It's not going to happen. I mean, no one's going to. I mean, players are going to be there. I understand that, and they can be tested, and the colony can be tested of players, and they can be pretty kept sequestered and everything else, and you can be in that same group, and so can a couple of photographers, a couple of cameramen, and a couple of umpires. I understand that, but no one's going to just go to the game and risk getting ill to go sit in the stadium. They're going to watch it on TV. So that makes it, compromises the game and compromises the revenues dramatically, and that isn't going to change until we get a drug.
That's right, and those revenues are
gone.
For owners, it's about 40%.
Yes, for baseball they're big. Football, it's a lot of money. Football's $9 million. It's billions and billions of dollars. I could do the math. It's a lot. It's $7-8 billion before they ever sell a ticket. That's not the case for baseball.
No, but what baseball has is that it's each and every night. So people can decide what game they want to go to.
But 16 billion people going through the turnstiles and the secondary and tertiary revenue streams, parking and hot dogs and beers. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, if it was only hot dog and beers, now it's fancy sandwiches and whatever. But,
and parking that's $40 a night.
It's just it's mind blowing when you think about the money that'll be lost. And I think, where this comes in again, when we're talking about no one's going to be at the ballparks, and I think that's the truest statement of all, is that no one will be at the ballparks this year. But then TV is going to serve a role, a big role, and that is, people who can't go to the ball games, they are going to be hunkered down to watch their team in the most surreal sense. I mean, I can't even imagine doing a game without any crowd noise. But can you imagine being a player? And I mean, going back to Little League time when maybe your parents and someone else's parents were at the game, and that's about it.
No, I can't imagine what it would feel like for the player to be in an empty. Now the ballparks won't be as big, but I can't imagine what it would feel like. I guess it would feel like playing a scrimmage. I guess, right? Just like playing one of those spring training scrimmage games.
It'll feel like that. Except every game is going to be more important than any game they've ever played because of the shortened season. I'm just thinking, just the aesthetics of the game. You're going to hear a foul ball, and it's going to be rattling around the stands like the movie The Natural.
Yeah,
it's just going to be surreal.
It will be. I mean, I'm sure there's a game you can remember in your life that you played some late September in front of 100 people somewhere or 1,000 people somewhere on a cool night. It was a school night and it's late in the season and there's you're in Cleveland or you're in Tampa and you're somewhere or Oakland and there's 500 people or 1,000 people in there. It's going to be like that every night, though.
I remember when I first got to Oakland, they were in a pennant race in '91 and I just left the Mets, and I got to the ballpark, and they were, I think, a half game behind Minnesota, and there were 12,000 people in the stands. I was like, "What is this? What is going on?" But it's a little different out there.
I said baseball has been through this before. It's called Tampa, but so I mean, those guys have been through it. We're talking with Ron Darling. I had Bobby Valentine on, and he said 3 weeks he thought the team would be realistically ready. You said 2, pushing it. 3 is more realistic, though, right?
Yeah. I think three is the number. I'm thinking that just from the logistics, I think for a manager to be with his ball club, to see who he has. Now, you have to remember, you're going to have to evaluate players as they come in. Some are going to be primed and ready to go, and some you're going to look at and say, how many Twinkies have you had in the last 2 months?
Good point.
There's going to be a new evaluation of each and every player to see where he's at. Some are going to be tip top and ready to go, and there'll be a few, like any industry, that will not be.
Comment on this, Ron. I asked Bobby what he would be most concerned about as a manager, and he said, you start in February, and what you try to do as you work towards opening day is have the group build up a trust for each other. You don't have time to do that now. He said guys start to build, relationships. They trust each other. They get used to each other. How much of that dynamic, how important is that to a ball club?
Well, I think it's very important. I've also, and you've been around teams that didn't like each other very much, and they could be great too.
Yeah, good ones too. If they're talented, pretty good ones. I know a couple that were that hated each other and they were good. They were really good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the minority, as opposed to the majority of teams that are good have a close knit kind of team that really believes in each other. I don't know, like if I were a manager, Mike, and we came back in the end of May and we're going to have games by June 15th, I don't know. I might call in a leader of the Navy SEALs, or what do they do when they find out that they've got to be ready to go in 2 weeks someplace across the globe? I don't know. I would try every little thing that I could. I know what concerns Bobby in getting his team ready, but the thing that's going to concern me, Mike, is
conditioning,
injuries.
Yeah,
the injury is going to be the problem. We're going to see guys that are going to go down with injuries that have never had injuries before, just because of how different it's going to be. They've never experienced it.
And if you're a star pitcher, will it change anything? Will you feel you can get on your program? Like, now listen, you were a star pitcher, or we can take it to the DeGrom level. I mean, you want to feel a certain thing before you hit the opening bell. You want to feel that you put a foundation in, that you're where you want to be. How long does it take a DeGrom to feel that way? Will he need a couple of weeks of the regular season to feel that way now?
Yeah, I think that what you'll have in the beginning of the season is about a 90 pitch count, which is a 5 to 6 innings, but never pushing them past that, because I just think because of the unknown. Can you imagine pushing on opening day Jacob DeGrom to 105 pitches, and the next thing you know, he hurts his arm? I mean, no manager wants to do that. So I think you're going to see your star pitchers for at least the first 2 weeks or first 3 starts at 90 pitches, but then they're going to really have to let them go, Mike, because at some point you're talking about an abbreviated season. So do you want to win this thing? Do you want to get in the postseason? If you want to get in the postseason, you got to have your best players play the most innings. That might not be the best thing for their health, but that's going to be what is demanded of a team playing an 80 or 90 game season.
Agreed. We're talking about Ron Darling, of course, as we hit mid-April. There's been talk of maybe opening the country in a lot of spots by May, maybe playing by June. We'll see. We don't know anything yet. We'll have to play this all by ear and see how the numbers look each day as we watch this unfold. How surprised were you by Syndergaard, or were you not surprised?
I'm always surprised because, he was throwing as well as he's thrown every spring training. It's just amazing to me that these guys can throw 98 one day, and 2 days later their arm is sore and they're on their way to getting cut. I'm not surprised because so many players go through it. I am surprised because he was in tip-top shape, pitching as well as he had ever pitched. And, the way I can identify these injuries now is so good that these guys are being taken out of play. So I'm disappointed because I thought he had gotten himself to a place where his pitching athleticism was going to somehow bang into that pitching intelligence, and I thought he was going to have a big year.
Considering how well pitchers do coming off Tommy John now, and sometimes they throw harder. They've all done it very well. Is there still a sense of dread and devastation to hear that news, or are players not as afraid of it anymore?
I don't think they're as afraid of the outcome, like how they're going to come back. But I think they're afraid of, again, we're getting back to what we were talking about before.
Just losing the earning power.
Yeah. At some point, especially a guy like Syndergaard, he's going to miss. Like, I can't even imagine, and we were talking about it before at 25 years old, what my career would have looked like if 1985 and 1986 were taken out of the picture. I mean, just think how that changes your arc when I was 24 and 25 years old. It just changes everything. And for Syndergaard, of course, it'll change what his numbers look like when he goes into free agency at some point.
What do you think of the Met team this year?
I think they're an awfully strong team in a really strong division. I think Girardi's going to make a big difference in Philadelphia with that ball club. I think Miami won't contend, but they're going to be better. They've got a lot of young talent, and they're going to play hard under Donnie. So they're going to be tough. And, of course, the Nats and the Braves and those teams. So they're a good team in a really good division. Cespedes,
What about Cespedes? You expect? Would you be, if you had a gun to your head, would you write down big numbers or small numbers for Cespedes?
I would write down small numbers if I was being really.
So would I.
Mike.
So would I.
As a fan, I would love them to have a huge year. But being realistic, I think it's going to be. It won't be the 40 home run season, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong for people who follow the Mets.
It was weird. The last couple of years, Miguel Cabrera, who's still sitting on a fortune in money, looked terrible. And then this year in spring training, he was killing the ball. I mean, it was almost like he went back to work. I don't know if that was going to really be true or not, but he hit a couple of massive home runs in the same game, and he looked like the old Cabrera. I mean, I don't know maybe if I don't know if the guy can find himself and have that one more year or not. I just wonder if that's true for these. He's a different level player even than Cespedes, but he was almost nothing the last couple of years, and now he looked like a different guy when I saw him in spring training this year.
The difference, Mike, is that never do you ever think twice about what Miguel Cabrera brings to you defensively. All you care about is how he hits. Now, the difference is that the reason Cespedes is a game-changing player is 75% is his offense, but 25% is his defense. He's a game-changer in that outfield when he's right. And that, to me, is the big question. It's not that he can't stand in the box and be athletic and do his thing because he's just too good, but can he run it out there and play a position and then run back in and do that for whatever games. Maybe the shortened season plays right into his strength.
I would have traded Diaz. I would have. I would not believe. I think some guys aren't made for New York, and you just take them and you send them packing and you say thanks. But you know what? You were great somewhere, and then you came here. And you just never looked comfortable. You just never looked like you belonged. We've seen guys like we always call it the Eddie Whitson,
That's right. That's right.
Or Sonny Gray's a perfect example. When he left, Sonny Gray couldn't get anybody out. He went to the Reds on a bad team, and he made the All-Star team last year. I mean, so he was comfortable again. Some guys aren't made for New York. I think he's one of those guys. They thought, no, he'll be really good. I saw him say that I'm going to shut people up. I think he kind of meant me because I've been very hard on him, so I think he will be shutting me up. But do you believe in him, or do you think that's a lot to ask that he's going to go from a guy who gave up 15 or 16 home runs in the ninth inning last year to back to being a guy who gets 50 saves?
Well, I'll tell you, this winter, because of all the talk last summer that his mechanics were off, his hand position was off, his arm position was not what it was. I went back and looked at every outing he had with Seattle in his record-breaking year.
Right.
And I honestly, Mike, didn't see any difference between how he threw in Seattle in how he threw with the Mets.
He had
as
nasty stuff sometimes with the Mets, and he still got clocked.
Yeah, as far as velocity, as far as
right, he just hung a lot of sliders.
And every single one was hit out of the ballpark, or so it seemed like. I'm in your in your camp as far as there are certain players that the scrutiny of every day playing in New York is too much for some. But I think two reasons I keep him and I try to make it work, Mike. One is that coming off the year he had, there's no way you would have gotten anything for him, and I think also for a everyone deserves a second chance, and I think the second year you'll see. But I just think the most important is that you wouldn't have got anything for him, and that's hard to take when you've traded. Hopefully, I pronounced his name right. The young kid Kalenic over to Seattle, who could be a future superstar. I think it makes you sit on him for another year.
But chances, I think, could be the key Met to the whole season. I really believe that. I really. Plus, the key is, what would you write down? This is also fascinating, Ronnie. I think this is like one of the. I think of all the guys in baseball, this would be the most fun guy to do this with right now. What will Pete Alonso's stats be this year?
Yeah, I mean,
he's not going to hit 50 home runs. We know that, okay? He's also, odds are, okay? Historically, the odds are very small. He's also going to get a ton of walks. We know that, okay? Yeah. So, and he's going to have to hit a lot of bad pitches. He's going to have to hit a lot of bad breaking balls or, change of paces or whatever. They're not going to challenge him for a while. They're going to make him hit bad stuff. Listen, if he was 35-100 to back up last year, that'd be a great year. A great year. What would be a fair? What would you write down in this year after what you watched day in, day out last year?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the nose, Mike. 35 plus, 100 plus is pitchers just kept challenging him last year, almost like we can't believe it. At some point he's going to go into a slump, and he never did.
I think that's exactly true. They threw the ball in his wheelhouse all year. They were like, this guy's not that good, and they kept eating it. They kept eating it all the time. Yeah,
they challenged him, and I think that maybe the most important thing that happens to Pete Alonso is his production will be as good as is Conforto a star, Mike? Is Conforto going to take the next step? Because he had a big year last year.
It's a good question.
He went unnoticed because of Alonso, but
very streaky. Very streaky.
Will Conforto hit lefties? He hasn't in his career yet, and will he become that next level? If he does, hitting behind Alonso, it could change the pitches Pete sees this year. But it's hard to repeat any of that. You follow golf. How many times do we watch in major championships the guy shoots 65, the next day shoots 75? It's hard to repeat a great round. It's hard to repeat a great year. And a lot of it has to do, I know in 86, I had a good year. 87, I did not. And when you get to a certain year, you want to take it to the next level. And sometimes there isn't a next level. We just saw the passing of one of the great ball players and great gentlemen of all time, Al Kaline.
Yep.
Imagine hitting 340 when you're 19 years old and never coming close to it again. He never had that kind of season again. He was an all-star player and he was a Hall of Fame player, all of those things. But he never equaled that season that he had as a rookie player, and that sometimes can happen. It's hard to match 53 and over 100 RBIs, but. I'm not saying that Pete can't have as productive a year if he can really handle the strike zone. We're talking about a guy who can walk 125, 130 times.
Now, at the same time, I would bet serious money that McNeil has 40 doubles, 25 homers, and hits 325 this year.
Yeah, McNeil.
I won't even blink. I don't even think it's a blink to say that about that guy.
Well, one, he's a hitting savant, and two, because of the nature of the game and the infielders moved around so much, his style of hitting, which no one really has, puts him in a really nice place. The only problem, not problems, no problems, but you just want McNeil will hit 100%. Just has to stay healthy.
Got to stay healthy, and I'd like to see them give him a position. I don't think that'll happen because I think he'll spend enough time spelling Cano and playing third base. So I think he'll do both, especially if Cespedes is healthy. If Cespedes is not healthy, maybe he'll find a position. But I think he'll wind up playing a lot of games at different spots. But that guy can just flat hit. I mean, he's going to be – I mean, if he doesn't hit 320, I'll be shocked, absolutely shocked. That's how good I think he is.
Yeah, he reminds me of Boggsy. If I'm thinking of people from my
that's
generation.
A high compliment. Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of his ability to foul off pitches, to wait till he gets a pitch he can handle. A guy that Boggsy never hit for power, but he could have if he wanted to. He probably could have hit 300 and hit 25 home runs, but he just rather hit 350 or 360. But his bat to hands skill ratio reminds me of Boggs.
I'll tell you, he's what we all thought Greg Jeffries was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's really good. This guy, he wasn't supposed to be this good, but he's a legitimate. First time I saw him the first year, I mean, he's a legitimate 300 hitter. That's all there is to it. He's not even a 305 hitter. He's like a 320 hitter. This guy.
Yeah, he's got a little later start than most guys, but it doesn't take away from his talent. It's just he's fun to watch, and I would tell you, I was asked by someone whenever a guy's having a good year, I try to think back, and it's getting harder and harder. But I try to think back on how I would attack this guy and get him out, and there's no real answer to him because he can hit.
How would you get Alonso out? How would you get Alonso out?
Alonso, you'd have to be brave enough to pound him in. We saw the one pitcher I saw that gave him a little bit of trouble last year, although he gives everyone a lot of trouble, was Soroka for the Atlanta Braves, who has the ability to pitch in. And he pounded Pete in, and I thought he was one of the few pitchers that might have had an advantage against Pete. But you'd have to be brave enough to pound him in. And today's game, they don't pitch in as much. So I think that plays in the Pete's favor.
We're talking about Ronnie Darling, of course. With having Syndergaard down, would you keep Lugo in the bullpen, or would you make him a starting pitcher? I would make him a starting pitcher. Would you keep him where he is? You think he's more valuable in the pen, or would you make him a starter?
I think they're going to, because of the signing of the two pitchers, Walker and Porcello. Those two guys will be right into the rotation. They'll keep Lugo where he is in the bullpen. Is that the right decision? Listen, Seth Lugo would be an outstanding starting pitcher.
I think he really would be a really good six-inning starter.
He absolutely. He's just too good, has too many pitches. He's too smart out there not to be. He just happens to be on one of the few ball clubs that has an abundance of starting pitching, and their strength is to have him in the bullpen, and on the days when they have a lead after 7, getting 2 innings out of him every third or fourth day. He just, 25 other teams in the game. The Yankees, one of the strong teams in baseball, would love to have a step.
Oh man, hey, listen, Lugo's record on the Yankees would be 16-2.
Exactly. So he's just on. He's going to look back on this someday, and I love watching Steph pitch and love him as him as a player. He's going to look back on this someday when he's fishing in Louisiana and go, boy, if I had been on another team, I would have had 100, 150 starts. But right now, the Mets are better with him in the bullpen, in my opinion.
Hard to digest. You talk about revenue. It's a lot better to be a starting pitcher money-wise, too, boy. You make a lot more money, as a starting pitcher.
You do, but I think that, he's going to look to be the next level under maybe Hader and other people. Miller started it, Andrew Miller with the Yankees when he signed that 4-year deal, looking for maybe a chance to get himself a 2 or 3-year deal at good numbers for a guy that pitches a couple times a week.
All right, what are you watching right now? What did you watch Ozark?
I am watching Ozark.
Isn't Ozark good?
It's one of the best things I've seen on TV. I find
Really,
it funny.
really edgy. I'll tell you, edgy women that'll kill you. I mean, there's a lot of them in the series, man. They got more nasty women in that series than anything I've seen in a long time.
Oh, that sounds like someone's autobiography, by the way. The title of and I find it interesting that everything seems to happen around 6:45 for whatever reason in the Ozarks. And you know, I'm a contrarian by nature, Mike, so I can't get into this Tiger King.
I didn't even turn it on. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. That's not me. Someone recommended Ozark, and I gotta admit, I gotta admit, Bloodlines is good too.
Bloodlines is good.
Good.
And, I heard someone told me Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland, where the premise is
it's good, but you know what? The second year
the same.
writing falls off dramatically.
Okay.
I watched it. The second year falls. It's like watching. It's like watching Homeland now. It's like so bad compared to what it was early on. Like Homeland, they did the last 2 years because they just basically paid her so much money. She did it. But you know what? You need the writing. And it's just not there. Same thing. Same thing. Designated Survivor, the writing fell off, I thought, dramatically. Ozark's writing is so good. It's unbelievable.
Well,
really, I'll tell you what's good. The All-American is shockingly good. You would think it would be. You would think it wouldn't be because you think it'd be a bunch of people, 20 years old with no clothes on. But I'm telling you, it's pretty good. And you would like it because it's West Coast, it's L.A., it's Crenshaw High, it's the whole thing. Not bad.
Wow.
Not bad.
Well, I feel the same way about Westworld. I thought the writing had gone downhill in the last year, and I was totally into that show. But I think next time I come on, this is our show, Mike. I'll do my homework.
Yes.
And when I come on, we'll review the things that we can find.
I just finished the third year Ozark, man. Hold on to your hat. I'm telling you.
Okay, I can't wait.
That's it.
I'm a season behind you. So.
All right. See you later, Ron.
Right.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Thanks,
like anytime.
Okay. Ron Darling, back after this.
He's ready to go on the Fan, New York Sports Radio. Mike's on, Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM, WFAN.
All right, we come your way on this Wednesday evening. What would normally be tax day, it's not. You got a couple more months to pay the government. You got until July to pay them if you want. So you don't have to worry about it today. Hey, they might even be giving you money right now. But here we are on the 15th day of April, waiting to see which way this goes. You see the report today that captains of industry told the president, well, you need a lot more testing before you open the country. Hey, everyone's been screaming that for 5 weeks. I mean, where has everybody been? I mean, I got tired of saying it. I mean, because every doctor you listened to or read about, any expert that you clicked onto anywhere said the same thing. Until there's massive testing, nobody's going anywhere. And now you're hearing that, and it's like almost like, oh, wow, we got to do it. Well, we got to wait for this testing stuff to get going, before. We haven't tested anybody. So I hope that doesn't slow everything up a lot. I mean, who knows? Well, who knows? I've given up waiting to hear stuff. You know what? I don't even watch these things anymore. You know that? Because they're so political, it's ridiculous. And number two, I'm not learning anything anymore. I can look at the screen and find out how many people unfortunately died today, and it's still going to be a staggering number. I can see how many more people got the virus today, and that's still going to be a staggering number. And then they can tell me when they're going to open the country up. Because you know what? You don't learn anything else, this stuff. All it is taking shots at the other side, and I'm tired of it. I really am. More important tonight that you take out and realize that today is the 15th April, and in 1947, Jackie Robinson trotted out to first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers in a game the Dodgers won over the Boston teams 12-6. If you ever saw the movie 42, pop it in tonight with your kids. If your kids have never seen the movie 42, pop it in tonight and watch it with them. And you can see a guy who changed America through sports. There are not many people, not that many, who changed America through sports, but he did. He did. What he did was that important. What he did was that big. It changed everything. It really did. It was an enormous, culturally, it was an enormous feat. an incredibly heroic feat. He took an incredible amount of abuse. He was a terrific athlete. He was probably a better athlete than he was a baseball player, and he was a really good baseball player. But he was a great athlete, as you know, track star, football player, and not a guy who didn't have an edge to him. People said he got picked because he didn't have an edge to him. He had an edge to him. But the old Branch Rickey. I don't want somebody who has the guts to fight back. I want somebody who has the guts not to fight back. That was the statement. I mean, that's the big statement in the movie. I want somebody who's got the guts to take the abuse and not fight back, take it and understand he's got to take it and just make his play do his talking for him. And obviously, with the help of guys who made a huge difference, guys who were unsung heroes like Ralph Branca, who was great to Jackie Robinson, guys like that. But, you haven't seen the movie, watch it. Watch it. Watch 42. It's well done. And, it's a movie you can watch with your kids. You can tell them about what it's about. And obviously, from 8 to 80, they can sit down and watch that tonight. You got time. I can't tell you to watch Ozark. I just told Ronnie Darling a couple minutes ago about watching Ozark because that's not for your kids. It is good, but it's not for your kids. It's a little edgy. And as I was saying to Ron when he was on just a couple minutes ago, there are some women characters on that show who are the nastiest women that you don't want to meet. Led by that Darlene Snell. Man, oh boy, who poisoned her husband. She was tough. The best line of the whole thing. There's pain that uses you, and there's pain you use. You got the good kind. That was one of the great lines. Well written show, very good show. I'm watching Homeland this year because I've always watched Homeland, but it's done. When shows come back because they've been so successful, and they can't pass up the money to come and do them another year. They get tired, though, and Homeland's tired. It's got a couple more episodes left. We got to get it over with, but it was a great show in its prime. It was an unbelievable show, and now it's not anymore. But it'll get finished. And then you got the Bulls coming up this weekend, and I'll tell you, I'm not a big... I saw Michael Jordan play as a freshman. I saw him play as a sophomore live. I saw him play as a junior live. I could see what an incredible talent he was. I've never been part of the Jordan craze, but I loved the Bulls. I loved watching the Bulls play. I loved when we used to go to Chicago and during the playoffs. I loved watching that team. And what I loved about them more than anything else was the way they played defense. And especially the Jordan, Pippen, Rodman teams. Because you had three guys there who had such great different talents. I mean, Jordan was this player who clearly one of the greatest players ever lived. To argue him and Will Chamberlain or him and Bill Russell is stupid. It's stupid to even start it. So why even bother? I saw someone do a list today because they were promoting that, and they put Seth Curry in the top 10 players of all time and not Bill Russell. Please, don't insult me. Don't insult somebody with that list. But that's okay. People who, think if you didn't play in the last 10 years, you can't make the list. I mean, so, but Jordan had such unique skills. He first of all, he had a iron will. He was as ferocious a competitor as anybody I've ever seen in any sport, anywhere. He was a killer. And, he was going to make his last shot. That's just what he was going to do. He was going to make it. No matter, I don't care if he was, 18 for 20 or 18 for 80. He was going to make his last shot. But you had in Pippen an exquisite player who was a point forward, who would handle the ball, who was oversized at the guard position, and was a shutdown defender, the likes of which the league has never seen in space. and it is, in my mind, the second best defender who's ever played in the NBA behind Bill Russell, and the best defender in space we've ever seen. Then you had Rodman, who was this tireless inside rebounder and lock-up defensive player who was tireless. These guys, among the three of them, they never got tired. They could play 48 minutes apiece, all three of them. And they would play both ends of the floor, and then they could go ride on the bike for an hour. They didn't have 2% body fat among the three of them. I mean, they were unbelievable. They really were. And I loved watching them play. Loved watching them play. So I'll be fascinated by that. And I like the last three better than the first three. I mean, we can all get into why he left and the reasons why he left. And you know what? There's enough conspiracy to fill that building many times over for that, just like there is now as to how you ever see how many people have sent you things telling you how the virus started? From it being that China sent it in retaliation for the tariffs, or it has to do with 5G, and I can give you 20 others too. I mean, you're just so tired of reading them and seeing them, and people presenting with you these crazy theories. Same thing with Jordan and why he left the NBA. There's like so many theories, it's unbelievable. Some of them might make a little sense, but who knows? Bottom line is, he had 3 years with one team and then 3 years with another team. And in those 6 years, he went 6-0 in the finals. And they were teams that played both ways in an era where you had to play both ways and where the game is a completely different game than it is now. Because you were allowed to play defense on the perimeter. And now you can't breathe on a perimeter player. You cannot even brush a perimeter player now, no less touch him. No less hand check them, no less push them. I mean, forget it. So it is a completely different game right now. I mean, it doesn't even resemble the game that they played. But it'll be fascinating to watch because they were like rock stars. They really were. And that madhouse on Madison, Dog and I would go every year to the playoffs. We'd go there, and we loved going there. We loved doing the games there, and they were great. I mean, those games were such shows, and that place rocked like. They said it was louder for hockey. I was never in there for a hockey playoff game, but I was in there for a ton of basketball games against the Knicks and then NBA final games. Dog and I went to the Sun series one year. We went another year to the Utah series, Seattle. I mean, we saw everybody, and those games were unbelievable. So I look forward to that. I think it starts Sunday night. They're promoting the heck out of it. ESPN needs it. So ESPN's going to have that Jordan thing. Or that bull thing. It really is more than just a Jordan thing. It's a bull thing. And they're going to have that, have the NBA draft. Where today's rumor is that John Gruden's going to blow the whole draft up and get the quarterback he wants. I don't think he's got the ammo to do it. I don't think he can. Now, the other rumor now is that the Dolphins are going to take Herbert instead of Tua because of injuries. We'll see. I can understand them worrying about whether Tua is going to be brittle or not. That's a fair thing to worry about. I don't think there's any question about talent among the two players. I think Tua's got a chance to be a Hall of Fame quarterback if he's healthy. I don't know if he's going to be healthy, though. I think it's a fair thing to bring up. He's had a lot of injuries. He's got an incredible amount of talent. He's a leader, and he is as deadly accurate as a quarterback can be. And he's got all the best qualities that a Breeze or a Wilson have, and he's very much in that vein. Montana, Wilson, Breeze, those kind of guys. Deadly, deadly accurate. It'll be fun to see how that unfolds. So we got the draft stuff on this 15th day of April. So if you were worried about coming up with some scratch for the IRS, you don't have to worry about it until July. And if you weren't worried about it, well, that's okay. You weren't worried about it. If you were worried about it, you don't have to worry about it again until July. Who knows what July will bring? We'll have to wait and see. Back after this. Frank It will be with you for another 10 minutes till 6:30. Susan and John have a Yankee win for you tonight. Hey, what do you think? You're going to show you going to replay Yankee loss for you? Come on. Nah, no way. Another Yankee win for you tonight. So the good old days when the Yankees win. I look up at the screen now. I see that from the White House, they have Sonny Perdue up there now, the Secretary of Agriculture, who just a minute ago just said this. Okay, if you're sick and you're working, go home. Okay, this is 5 weeks into the pandemic, and you put the Secretary of Agriculture up there to tell the people that if you don't feel well, go home. 5 weeks into the pandemic, that's what we're getting now? We're getting Sonny Perdue telling us if you don't feel well, okay, go home. Get off the line. This is about packaged food. Get off the line and go home. Got it. Thanks for that. That's a valuable piece of 5 weeks into this pandemic, okay? 600,000 cases later, 30,000 dead, and he's going to tell us, if you don't feel well, go home. Get off the line. Put that chicken down. Get off the line and go home. I tell you, he's no Orville Freeman. Okay. None of you out there know who Orville Freeman is, do you? Orville Freeman was JFK's Secretary of Agriculture. How do I know that? Because I'm a JFK nerd. That's how I know that, okay? That's how I know that. No one else in their right mind would know that. Here's what Fauci said. I'm going to bring this up today because the rock star of the pandemic basically spoke about sports and about baseball. And here's what he said. He said that the only way there's going to be professional sports this summer in America is by holding events without fans in attendance. He said there's a way of doing it. Nobody comes to the stadium. Put the players in hotels, wherever you want to play. Keep them well surveilled. Have them tested every single week and make sure they don't wind up infecting each other or their family. Now, listen, this is the number one. He's a nice man, and he's the number one infectious doctor in the world. Number one doctor for, infectious disease in the world. Number one expert. Where did Dr. Fauci think the players stayed before the pandemic? In Winnebagos? I mean, they always stayed in hotels. So what do you mean put the players in hotels? Where does he think they stayed? Does he think they slept on the bus? I mean, listen, I understand the idea that we're not going to be in a position to have fans in attendance and have them closely gathered at the ballpark. That's the headline. But the hotel stuff with the players, I don't get. Where does he think players stayed? Put them in hotels? What the heck? Where the heck do you think they've been staying all these years? See, we're getting goofy now. That's the problem. We're getting goofy. These guys get up there every night and they repeat themselves. Even Fauci now, who's the number one guy for infectious disease in the world, he's now repeating himself. Because they have nothing new to tell you, because they've reached an impasse. They want to open the country up. There's too many people still dying, and they don't know how to open the country up because everyone's telling them the only way to open it up is to test, and they can't test. So they can't open the country up. I saw 2 studies today. Somebody sent me a copy of them. I can't quote them because he said I wasn't supposed to have them, okay? So one of the guys wanted to test 20 million people a week. How are you going to do that? We've tested less than 2 million people in 5 weeks. How are we going to test 20 million people a week? But when I turn it on, I get Sonny Perdue. I mean, I'd rather watch, a movie. And then you get, what we're going to do is we're going to map out the country, okay? And where there's no cases, we're going to open the country up. Great, except one thing. Where there's no cases, there's no economy. So, yes, we are going to fling Montana are wide open and Wyoming wide open. I can't even bring the Dakotas into it because that pork plant had 600 cases at the one plant, which is why Sonny Perdue's up there telling you if you don't feel well, go home. Because that plant, that pork company in the Dakotas had 600 cases in the one plant. I mean, you got to be kidding me with this stuff. See, now you're not getting anything new at all because they have nothing new to tell you. And the idea, okay, you got Fauci's up there now, who's now opining on baseball and is acting like players being in hotels is something new. Well, put the players in hotels. Doc, excuse me. I know you've been basically in a lab your whole life, but where do you think the players have been staying all these years? And they don't have their families with them in the hotels anyway when they're on the road. What are you talking about? So, I mean, you got him a little out of his depth right now. And then you got Sonny Perdue comes up there and tells you basically you don't feel, well, go home. That's in response to the pork plant where 600 people came up with the virus. We are just, I hate to say it, we're starting to look like the Keystone Cops. Everybody wants to reopen this thing. Right now, nobody has a plan to reopen it. Andrew today gave you this whole thing about building a bridge to the new normal and all this stuff, and he's giving you the bridge, and then he starts telling you how he rebuilt the Tappan Zee Bridge. Like that has something to do with what we're doing right now. We rebuilt the Tappan Zee Bridge. Andrew, you can rebuild the Tappan Zee Bridge 50 times. And it will be easier every time than trying to get this economy restarted without a drug that can make people feel comfortable. Because here's the bottom line. People are not going to go back to any place where they're crowded with other people until they feel there's some way for them to get the virus and be made whole again, which means there's a vaccine that makes everybody feel confident or there's a therapeutic that works when I get it. Other than that, you're not going to have anybody at ball games. You might not even have players wanting to play. You're not going to have anybody at Broadway plays or concerts or jammed into restaurants or in movie theaters or in elevators. And how are we going to send everybody back into our economy in a city like New York and try to keep everybody 6 feet apart? What are we going to do? Have people, can you imagine rush hour and everybody 6 feet apart on Fifth Avenue? They'd be here to Massachusetts. What you're getting now is a lot of press conferences with a lot of talk and no plans. Because they don't have a plan, because they don't have any tests. And how are they going to test everybody? And this idea of testing and then mapping from everybody, which means I get tested positive and they go to me. Who goes to me? First of all, no one knows. You're going to hire people? You're going to hire Dick Tracy to come knock on my door and say, okay, tell me everybody you've been in contact with in the last 30 days. And what, you're going to go track them all down? I mean, are we serious? We are at an impasse. We want to reopen. We just don't know how. And they're afraid to throw the whole thing just wide open because if they do, they might not be able to control the virus. You know what? It's going to start to hurt your head, so take a couple of hours off from tonight. Listen to John and Susan. Yankees will win tonight, I promise. They might have a couple of rough innings before they do, but I promise no matter what game it is, they'll win by the end. I promise you. They'll win by the end. The good guys will come out, just like the old cowboy movies, the good guys will come out by the end. Okay? It'll happen. 6:30, Casamigos Tequila, brought to you by those who drink it